Howdy y'all, Bearded Carpenter here. I'm glad you decided to join us today. We're going to be finishing up the chinking on the smokehouse, and we also want to thank the new subscribers. We appreciate you for subscribing to our channel, and we're thankful for those who have shared us. And we hope you get something out of this video that will help you in your chinking job when you get to that point on your cabin. I'm going to show you my mixture, or my formula, for mixing chinking mortar. I use 3 parts sand, and in here I'm using just gallon paint buckets, and I fill 3 of them up with just clean sand, masonry sand. And then I have this gallon bucket is half full of Portland cement, just a gray Portland, and then half full of type N masonry cement. And then in this bucket I have finely sifted red clay, and I've got a gallon bucket here that's half full of water. I'm not using the red clay for coloring here. I have found that in using the clay, it seems to cause little hairline cracks when the mortar begins to cure out. And so I have found some dye, and this is light buff. It's Solomon Colors that I got at Acme Brick. So I'm actually using however much that is in a cup, and you can see it's approximately the same color as the red clay. I've just started with a half a gallon of clean water. Now there's times that you may have to adjust that. If your sand gets rained on, it's going to have a lot of moisture in it, and you wouldn't need to use as much. And if it's really dry, you might want to add just a little bit more. You want your mortar to be workable, but you don't want it too wet and you don't want it too terribly stiff. I'll show you what I use the tools that I use to put the chinking in and to smooth it down. I'm using a 2-inch and an 1.5 inch marginal trowel, and I'm using a little 1/2 inch pointer trowel, and I'm using a hawk to put my mortar on. It's just a square metal, I think it's actually aluminum, with a handle underneath it and a little cushion thing here to make it more comfortable for your hand. And I'm just going to take a trowel, put some on the hawk, and I can actually rest this edge of the hawk on the bottom of the chinking gap, and it takes some of the weight off my hand. As you can see, I put some masking tape on, but in starting out, if you feel uncomfortable about packing the cement mortar mix into the chinking gap, and you don't want moisture from the chinking to stain your logs at this little point here and here, this is something that you can do, and it might help you out. Now on this gap, I put it on the top and the bottom. And if you look down here, on this chinking gap, I only put the tape on the bottom, because what we're going to do when we put this in there and start troweling it down, we're going to undercut that, and we're going to bring it out even to the bottom. That will help when any rain hits this, or moisture, it won't get underneath your chinking. It'll have a tendency to go on off and keep draining all the way down. I have a bottle here with water, and it's just a mist bottle, and I'm just going to slightly mist that. You don't want to get it too wet. Depending on the stiffness of your mortar, how dry you mix it, and these logs are pretty dry. I'm just going to mist that, just dampen it a little bit, so that when I put the mixture in there, the dryness of the logs won't suck the moisture out of the chinking too quick. And this is up above my head. bit of the excess. And it has a tendency sometime on a wider gap to sag. You can see it doing there. Just take some of that down and then just let it sit for a while. Because if you get to working it too much, you can cause it to sag and it gets to be a little bit aggravating. So I'm just trimming that off and I'm just going to leave it. There's something there. Just let that sit. And you can see how the tape is protecting the logs there. And get my other hand on it. Since I am right-handed, I usually start on the right side and work my way down. I'm using this little 1/2-inch corner trowel. It's easier to pack just a little bit than a big bunch of it with a wider trowel. You can see that's going all the way back. I'm just packing it in there. Get that out of the way. Just packing it there, trimming off a little bit of the excess. And I'm just going to let that set for a while, begin to set up, and then I'll come back and begin to actually smooth it down and undercut the top edge. We'll go back the other end and start working this down. You want to undercut up here so the water will run off and not collect on the top side there. I'm doing about a 1/2 inch on the top side. Then I'm going to bring it out even with the bottom. You can take this little trowel and you can kind of work it back and forth. And after this begins to set up pretty good, if you want it really slick, you can go back over it. As it sets up, it gets slicker if you keep working it. But you don't want to keep working it so much that you start to pull this down, and it can sag on you. And that's something that can be really aggravating when you're trying to get it smoothed out. And I'm just pushing down up there, and that begins to form an undercut. You can just pull this down towards the bottom there. And if you want to come back and trim just a little bit off. You'll get faster at this. I know I'm going really slow because I'm trying to show everything that I can think of that might be helpful to you. Now after that sets there a while, I'll probably go back over it just to give it the little final trowel down. You see that little eyebrow on this log? Actually, it's on the bottom side, but when you get your chinking in there, all of those places in a log that are like that, they just stand out. They look really neat. I'm trimming this off some. You can catch that excess that you trim off on your hawk. You can see that's got some little areas in it that needs to be slicked up. I'll let that set for a while, then I'll come back and finish that out, because you want it pretty slick. As you're pushing this in on the underneath side of the upper log, you'll start to mash the chinking out at the bottom.